Federal government says Benin, Niger leaders have not met border closure conditions. Showore Bakare institutes fresh contempt suit against Director General of the Department of State Services. In international news, Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam humbled by election results. And in sports, Kenya wins 2019 Senior Women's Challenge Cup.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The federal government has insisted the republics of Benin and Niger have not met the conditions set for the reopening of the country's border. Minister of Information and Culture Lai Mohammed stated this during an assessment visit to Seme border. He explained that from the magnitude seizures made and the number of illegal immigrants apprehended in the last 2 weeks, it was obvious that nothing has been done yet by both Benin and Niger to address the challenges. Mohammed says since the border closure, local consumption of fuel had dropped by 30%, apparently because of reduction in smuggling of petroleum products to neighboring countries. Earlier this month, the federal government listed 5 conditions for reopening the country's land borders, one of which is that imported goods that were repackaged by neighboring countries and brought to Nigeria would not be accepted. During a meeting in Abuja of the Inter-Ministerial Committee on the temporary partial closure of land borders, Foreign Affairs Minister Geoffrey Oyama stated the only travel document acceptable from anyone coming into Nigeria through the land borders is the passport. Sahara Reporters publisher Omoyele Showore and his co-detainee Olawale Bakare have instituted fresh contempt suit against the Director General of the Department of State Services, Yusuf Beche. They say Beche has refused to follow court orders delivered by Justice Taiwo for their release after a court-mandated 45 days period. Both men have been held in the custody of the DSS since August. They want the federal government or the Federal High Court in Abuja to jail Beche for contempt of court. Meanwhile, Justice Ijoma Ojuko of the Abuja Federal High Court has threatened to jail Yusuf Beche over the continued detention of both men. The judge had previously issued a notice of consequences of disobedience of court order on the DSS. Still in court, a federal high court has granted permission to the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, in a suit against President Muhammadu Buhari, Senate President Ahmed Lawan, and Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, over the failure to disclose details of allocations, disbursements, and spending of more than 240 billion naira yearly as security votes between 1999 and 2019. Others joined in the suit are Governor of the Central Bank, Godwin Emefiele, Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, and Auditor General of the Federation, Anthony Onyine. Justice Ahmed Ramat Mohammed ruled that hearing notices be issued and served on all the respondents within a week. The order by Justice Mohammed has now cleared the way for SERAP to advance its case against the respondents and to challenge their refusal to account for the allocations, disbursements, and spending of security votes. Former President Goodluck Jonathan has challenged former Governor of Jigawa State, Sule Lamido, to prove his involvement in the Malabu oil deal scandal. In an interview with the Sun newspaper, Lamido says Jonathan collaborated with the All Progressives Congress in the just concluded Bayelsa elections because he was trying to avoid being prosecuted by the government over the Malabu deal. Lamido says the federal government used the Malabu case to blackmail Jonathan into supporting the All Progressives Congress in Bayelsa. While reacting in his statement, Jonathan accused the former governor of Jigawa of peddling falsehood. He said the two-term Jigawa governor was spreading cheap lies to confuse the public. The deal involves the award of oil prospecting license 245 to Malabu Oil and Gas. OPL 245 is an oil field in the Niger Delta that has some 9 billion barrels of crude oil. The worth is estimated at $500 billion. The sale of the block, which is considered as one of the most lucrative on the continent, has been replete with allegations and lawsuits. Have you ever wondered why male beauty entrepreneurs seems to get more attention than their female counterparts? Now, don't get me wrong, women still have a lockdown, but it seems men are slowly beginning to dominate the beauty world. We may be in a situation now where what women can do, men can do better. Watch this next report by Kelechi McGahn.
Piece after piece, color after color, and one glitter after another. This 31-year-old nail technician carefully brings every concept to life in his fingernail artworks. His artistic inclination has pitched him as the go-to nail technician for many celebrities in Nigeria and beyond. Prince's decade-long career started out quite rocky. A school dropout whose family saw no good in him, the homeless prince perfected his art on the streets. Now he rakes in an average $5,000 monthly.
Right now is very unique for me because we break the barrier. You know, it was difficult then because people thought maybe I was gay, I was a womanizer, but now everything is cool. You know, they see it as a professional work now.
Prince's unique works and expertise keeps him in high demand compared to his peers. Women pay as much as $50 to $100 and sometimes even more to have their nails done.
Before now, I've made my nails in several places. There's one issue or the other. Either my nails start breaking or it start paining me or there's swollen or something. But since he started making my nails, there's nothing of such. And I love compliment personally. I love compliment so much. Each time he make my nails, anywhere I go, I get compliment. Your nails is beautiful. Wow, your nails is beautiful. And I love that.
But Prince is not only redefining the nail industry, he's inspiring other young men within and outside Nigeria.
I would say he has a style of training that once you get here, no matter how difficult it has been for you under being a nail technician, once you come here, you're going to perfect your work.
For many Nigerian women, beauty and appearance is high on their priority list. This demand has turned the beauty industry here to a worthwhile venture. It's worth about $1.4 billion. Although Prince is cashing in on the thriving industry, he's pushing to break boundaries beyond the shores of Nigeria.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to stories from across the continent. 13 French soldiers are reported killed in a helicopter crash on Monday during an operation against Islamic militants in Mali. French President Emmanuel Macron's office said in a statement 2 helicopters collided during the operation. Macron has expressed deep sadness over the incident. With the help of France, Mali's army has recaptured the territory in the north that was taken over by jihadists after the country suffered violence since 2012. Insecurity has continued and the violence has spread to other countries in the region. The devastating landslide that hit remote villages in Kenya's West Pokot County has continued to claim more lives. Death toll has risen to 65 on Monday as more bodies were pulled from heaps of soil. Pokot County Governor John Lukiampunkwa has said rescue and recovery missions by various government agencies were underway. He said the death toll could still rise as 22 persons were still missing. The governor said 6 bodies of 3 children, 2 women and a man have been recovered, adding to the 46 deaths recorded on Sunday. County Commissioner Apollo Okello has reported more than 400 persons have been displaced and are camping at various primary schools located on higher ground. Forecast from Kenya Meteorological Services is not encouraging. Director Stella Ora warns rains will not subside until December. Zimbabwe and the European Union have taken another step towards normalizing relations after a meeting of ministers in Harare. This was the second round of talks between officials from the Southern African country and European bloc following the launch of the dialogue process in June. Faraya Nwakutuya reports.
There were handshakes, hearty smiles and group photos at the end of a marathon meeting which inched a relationship strained for nearly 2 decades closer towards normalcy. The talks focused on economic cooperation, democratic reforms and sanctions.
We have urged the EU that they can assist us in removing the sanctions or talking to other people who continue to have sanctions with us, and they indicated to us that they have removed most of the sanctions that they had imposed on Zimbabwe, and they have demanded that we share with them the type of effects of the sanctions that we are talking about.
The EU Council is due to review its restrictive measures on Zimbabwe next February, taking into account progress in implementing promised reforms.
We do think from the EU side that progress has been slower than we would have expected, and I think it has been also slower than the government has originally pronounced about how quickly the government would move forward with various reforms. But we had a good, quite detailed discussion about that, and clear indications that further steps on the reform agenda would be taken.
Another meeting is scheduled for June 2020, ahead of which key benchmarks have been set.
These involve such issues such as the follow-up to the recommendations of the Motlanthe Commission report, and also electoral reforms. The interministerial task force is working on them. So we understood, and that we hope that by indeed our next meeting we would have more concrete steps on these issues. We also sent quite clear messages from our side that how we regard the human rights situation, that we would not want to see it further incidents in that account.
The EU says it's encouraged by the establishment of a national political dialogue earlier this year, but has urged all parties to participate in the process. The main opposition MDC has rebuffed invitations to participate in the inter-party talks.
The 41st edition of the Cairo International Film Festival continues at Egypt's Cairo Opera House. Participating in the 9-day event are movie stars and filmmakers from different parts of the world. Reporter Yazir Hakim has the details.
Movie stars packed the Cairo Opera House for the opening ceremony of the Cairo International Film Festival. This is the 41st edition of the festival.
This 41st edition is very special. First of all, it's dedicated to the memory of our former artistic director, Yusuf Sharif Rizallah. It's a very special edition because we also have a really great lineup this year with a lot of films that are showing for the first time internationally or world premieres, and we are very lucky to have a very strong industry component to this edition with all kinds of master classes and workshops and panels.
Every year there is an honorary country. This year it's Mexico, where 8 films are being screened. There are about 15 movies from Africa. One of them is Tunisian film Bik Naish, or We'll Live Together.
It's the story of a Tunisian family in the end of 2011 in Tunisia. They found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time. They face an incident that changes their lives, and then they go on a trip to know the truth and save their 10-year-old child.
Over 10 days, visitors can watch 153 films from 63 countries. There are 35 films in their premiere screening, more than in any previous edition.
The festival was very nice, the organization very good, and the opening ceremony was glamorous. I also intend to watch as many movies as possible to see different types of cinema and cultures.
The film screenings are open to the public in several locations around Cairo. Besides the main competition for feature films, there are other awards such as the Best Short Films and Best Documentaries. The closing ceremony is on the 29th of November. 15 movies are competing for the top prize, which is the Golden Pyramids Awards for Best Film, to be announced on the final day.
When we return, international news. Hong Kong leader Carrie Lam humbled by election results. And later, sports. Kenya wins 2019 CECAFA Senior Women's Challenge Cup. Welcome back. This is ANN News, not world events. Results of Hong Kong's local election, in which opposition candidates won nearly 90% of contested seats, have become a sobering event for leader Carrie Lam. Lam said on Tuesday the results may be a reflection of unhappiness with her administration and its handling of pro-democracy protests. She repeated her calls for an end to violent demonstrations and restated her previous pledge to carry out public dialogue to address the issues underlying the unrest. But she offered no concrete concessions. The election results means the pro-democracy bloc will control 17 of 18 district councils. Before now, it controlled none. The vote will not significantly change the balance of power in Hong Kong's quasi-democratic political system. District council members have no power to pass legislation. They deal mainly with hyper-local issues such as noise complaints and bus stop locations. China says it is committed to the one country, two systems principle that was set in place in 1997 when Britain returned the city to China. But many Hong Kongers believe the system is being eroded. Uber, the ride-hailing company, has had problems getting a foothold in many parts of Europe for a while, and now London is also slipping away from its hands. Uber's operating license in this huge city has not been extended, and that throws the company's future in its most lucrative European market into question. The decision will not immediately affect Uber's presence in London streets, and the company is likely to appeal the decision as it has done in the past. Transport for London, TfL, which regulates taxi operations in London, says it has found that more than 14,000 trips were taken by drivers who had faked their identity on the firm's app. TfL said on Monday a pattern of failures by Uber has been identified. This includes several breaches that placed passengers and their safety at risk. TfL said the 43 fraudulent drivers discovered included some whose driver licenses had been revoked and one driver who had been cautioned for distributing indecent images of children. Researchers in Mexico have developed a new method of pest control that is safe for the environment and cheaper for farmers. They are using native insects to get rid of invasive ones. Alasdair Beverstock reports.
Campeche, on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, an agricultural region whose name means place of snakes and ticks in the native Mayan language. But since 2013, there's been a new insect in town, the sugarcane aphid, which has wreaked havoc on the state's agricultural industry. The solution to the problem? More insects.
This is the green lacewing, a member of the Chrysopidae insect family. Their larvae are known as aphid lions for one simple reason. They ferociously prey on aphids and other insect pests and eggs, known to damage crops.
Charged by the state government with the production of these pest-fighting bugs, Professor Miguel Burgos today runs a laboratory that produces enough lacewings to feast on the pests covering 20,000 hectares of crops a year.
In a single week, these aphids can invade a hectare of crops. And these predatory insects also have predators, so they completely alter the food chain. The treatment will never completely wipe out the pests, but they will reduce their numbers to an extent where they don't damage the crops as nature regulates itself on its own.
The insect eggs are sold across the state for $3 per hectare, a significant saving over the cost of traditional chemical pesticides. Burgos says over a year, the savings can total 80% for a local farmer. And in addition to being cheaper, the process is entirely eco-friendly.
The agricultural products that come from fields treated with these insects are completely safe because they have not come into contact with chemical pesticides. Our goal as a lab is through the production of these insects to eliminate the use of chemicals in combating pests.
Anery Serrano is a Campeche-based biologist and says this sort of eco-friendly alternative is essential for more sustainable agriculture.
The insects take longer to have an effect than chemical pesticides, so the farmers, who are generally from poor backgrounds, can be harder to convince to use these biological methods. But once they're available at lower costs, produced on a larger scale, and made easily accessible, they'll be a very viable form of pest control.
As Campeche State tackles its problem with pests, it's doing so in a sustainable way by letting Mother Nature do the work.
The U.S. impeachment inquiry got a boost on Monday when a federal judge ruled that former White House counsel Donald McGahn must comply with a House subpoena for his testimony in the Trump impeachment inquiry. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson said the president does not have the power to excuse McGahn or any other current and former White House officials from testifying. The Trump administration plans to appeal Jackson's ruling. A lawyer for McGahn says he would comply with a House subpoena unless a court imposes a temporary suspension of the judgment until a ruling on the appeal. Others who have resisted testifying, including Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former National Security Advisor John Bolton, and Acting Chief of Staff Mike McGovern. Democrats looking into whether to impeach Trump for pressuring Ukraine to investigate 2020 presidential rival Joe Biden believe these senior officials can provide vital evidence. Up next, sports. Kenya wins 2019 Senior Women's Challenge Cup. Please stay with us. Welcome back. This is CNN News in Sport. Super Eagles coach Gana Roy would love to see his contract renewed by the Nigeria Football Federation when it expires in June next year. And the Nigeria Football Federation, NFF, has issued fresh conditions for that extension to happen. NFF President Amaju Pinnick says most crucial among the conditions is that the Eagles coach would be expected to monitor domestic games and be domiciled in Nigeria. Minister of Youth and Sports Sunday Dare has also advised Raw to adhere to NFF's conditions. The Kenya Starlets have won the 2019 East and Central Regional Championship, the CECAFA Senior Women's Challenge Cup, on Monday. Striker Gentrix Chikangwa came off the bench in the second half to score a brace to guide Kenya to victory. The defeat left Tanzania fans disappointed after their side had won the previous two CECAFA women's title in 2016 and 2018. Tanzania's Omari Kwagamisi was voted most valuable player, and Tanzania backed the Fair Play Award. That is CNN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV.